poppin', variants? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show. But listen up, gang. After these 2 episodes of an insanely good Loki Season 2, I've only got one thing to say. I do not trust Ouroboros at all. Listen, I love actor Key-Huoy-Kwan as much as the next human being with a soul, and I know that OB is a nice man to everyone that he meets, and I was legitimately happy to see him get the recognition that he deserved from his #1 fan Casey in episode 2. But nonetheless, that man Ouroboros is a man with a motive, and I believe that Ouroboros could very well be the true main villain of the entire season as the main reason why a lot of this chaos is happening. So let's dive into why this could be the case together, my nerd babies. Alright, so I know that you guys are wondering why I'm accusing a man who is effectively the TVA's version of Winnie the Pooh of high time crimes and multiverse misdemeanors. And you know what? I don't blame you. So far in the series, it very much appears that OB is just a happy guy who is excited to help the new friends that he's made into trying to save the TVA from destruction. But nonetheless, I'm here to tell you today, on this day, that OB is truly an OP. That man's an op. OB is the true villain of the season that is seeking revenge against all the employees who have wronged him for eons, especially one Mobius M. Mobius. And there's a couple of reasons why I believe OB is the big bad of the season, and it basically boils down to his tragic past as well as the symbolic meaning behind Ouroboros' name. And I also have a feeling that all of this will lead to OB being revealed as a much anticipated Marvel villain in disguise. But first, let us talk about OB's past, because that is where I believe the core of his secretly malicious motivations lie. Now, in episode 1, when Loki and Mobius first meet OB, we learn that OB is the only employee in the TVA's Research and Advancement Department. And because of this, he has spent his entire existence fixing all the broken equipment and/or bananas of the TVA non-stop for countless millennia, even telling Loki and Mobius that he doesn't even sleep for fear of falling behind on his incessant workload. This, my nerd babies, is exactly why I believe OB is up to no good, because OB has been treated like absolute garbage for so damn long, and is still being treated like garbage by the TVA even to this day. Throughout episode 2, despite everyone in the TVA already knowing that they were all variants kidnapped to be used as tools by a madman at the end of time, everyone is still treating OB like a slave of a repairman, with both Hunter B-15 and Casey only invoking OB's name when they need something from him. Even Mobius and Loki are still taking advantage of his kindness by treating him as some type of repairing machine or something. No one ever comes and visits OB without needing something from him directly, and no one ever says thank you, and it's been that way for OB for eons. This all being said, I have a strong feeling that this disgruntled repairman has been using the mayhem of the chaotically branching timeline in order for all the coworkers who ignored him to suffer and hopefully die. Especially Mobius, who apparently was the last living being to visit OB after taking the wrong floor in an elevator 400 years prior to the events of Loki Season 2. Which is why I believe that OB purposely sent Mobius out to be exposed to the skin-peeling radiation of the sacred timeline in a cracked containment suit. And it's also why I believe that a malicious OB sent Loki on a mission to prune himself, secretly hoping that their reliance on each other would cause their own demises. Because for some reason, Loki was worthy of being a friend to Mobius despite being a war criminal of a rogue variant, and OB wasn't. I mean, hell, Mobius couldn't even remember OB's name when he came to see him again, when OB thought about Mobius all the time after that last visit, because he felt like they made a meaningful friendship connection. But apparently he was wrong. Because you see, the main reason why I believe that both seasons of Loki exist is to show the audience the effects of loneliness on living beings, and how isolation itself is all one really needs to be led down a nefarious path. Season 1 was all about this theme of loneliness as it explored the lives of both Loki and Sylvie, and how their lives of solitude forged them into a man that can't be trusted and a woman who doesn't trust anyone. And that season ended with both of those two lonely Lokis meeting the loneliest man of all time, and discovering just how much he who remained his own isolation had driven that Kang variant insane enough to send the entire multiverse into chaos. In that very same vein, OB will continue this very important theme in Season 2 by being a silent, disgruntled employee, purely driven by the pain of his millennia of solitude and slavery for people who barely even care that he's alive. And I believe that this is secretly part of the reason why OB doesn't help Mobius and Loki when they come back to him for help with X5 Tempad in episode 2. Instead of taking like 2 seconds to help Mobius and Loki with their own mission to save the TVA, OB merely brushes them off and basically tells them that he's too busy with trying to fix the time loom to help them, when he is clearly doing something mysterious with that temporal aura extractor that he gave Loki and Mobius in episode 1. All Obi does is just give them a copy of his guidebook and then tells them to figure it out, which to me felt like a major bit of passive aggression from a man who is fed up that no one wants to know how to solve their own problems. Like, he literally made a guidebook for that purpose and nobody reads it. And later, when a well-read Casey recommends a way to Obi to bypass the blast door protocol, Obi stops him by just telling him that it wouldn't work, and that Casey should just trust him because he's the one who wrote the TVA guidebook. I think that was absolute bullshit. This, in my opinion, is just Obi weaponizing and monopolizing his intelligence, because Obi knows that without He Who Remains being in the picture anymore, that he is now the person who knows the most about how the TVA stays afloat. And this being the case, Obi is now effectively the most powerful person in the multiverse because he is the only person in the TVA outside of Casey that isn't severely crippled by ignorance. Like, Obi literally went from a forgotten zero to the TVA's #1 hero overnight. And I feel like Obi is kind of loving and hating that right now. Because while I'm sure that Obi appreciates being remembered and getting new visitors who now see his value, Obi didn't magically become valuable because the sacred timeline broke down. Like, Obi has always been the TVA's greatest MVP outside of Miss Minutes, but nobody cared. All they cared about was getting their equipment fixed by the guy downstairs without a single thank you. And especially without taking the time and efforts to read the guidebook that he specifically wrote so his fellow coworkers could actually help themselves. Because their willful ignorance to how anything in the TVA works is what caused Obi to not be able to sleep or be social for an ungodly amount of time. And now Obi is using their ignorance against them as revenge. Because isn't it funny how Obi is the only person who remembers Loki visiting him in the past, when everyone else seemingly has no memory of Loki's extremely memorable car crash of an injury? Like, I have a strong hunch that Obi knows exactly what is going on with Loki, but is using Mobius and Loki's own ignorance against them by basically just agreeing with their flawed logic as to what is actually going on, like I believe Obi condescendingly does here.
Wait, is he talking to you in the past and you're just now remembering it?
Wow, that makes perfect sense. There's no flaw in that logic.
People that Obi wants the approval of are also the people that Obi has grown to resent the most. Which is why I believe that this current situation is very bittersweet for Obi. It seems to me like Obi is trying to finally get the recognition that he deserves before wiping out every single person that has made his life a living hell. Possibly even secretly wanting to use the temporal extractor that he's fiddling with to extract new variants from the sacred timeline to take their place. Possibly even all variants of himself scattered throughout the multiverse. Because after eons of talking to just himself, I can definitely see Obi wanting to do what Kang did and build a council of Obi variants to run the TVA with perfect precision when everyone is gone. Because if every person in the TVA knows how to fix everything, then there is no need for a research and advancement department. Obi would have an entire TVA filled with the only person that he can rely on, himself. But speaking of self-reliance, another core reason why I believe that Ouroboros is going to be the main villain of the series has got to do with the symbolism surrounding his name, and how that symbolism is tied to the overall plot and themes of season 2. For those of you who don't know, Obi's name, Ouroboros, is actually based on a real piece of iconography of the same name that depicts a snake or a dragon figure consuming its own tail for energy and sustenance. And because of this, the Ouroboros symbol has become synonymous with the concept of self-reliance across different cultures and mythologies, something that Obi knows all too well. However, what's most interesting to me is that in Norse mythology, the Ouroboros is linked to the concept of the world serpent, also known as Jormungandr. According to Norse culture, Jormungandr was a serpent who encircled the entire planet with its tail in its mouth. Very similarly to how the sacred timeline encircles the TVA and the Citadel at the end of time with its own tail in its mouth. A mouth that the TVA refers to as the temporal loom. This all being said, I believe that the sacred timeline of the Loki series is supposed to be Marvel Studios' adaptation of Jormungandr, the great Ouroboros of Norse mythology, with the temporal loom head of the MCU's world serpent currently choking on its own tail of increasingly branching universes. It's a giant Ouroboros. This entire season of Loki seems to be revolved around Ouroboros the man being charged to fix the cosmic Ouroboros that is the sacred timeline. And since Norse mythology has the world serpent Jormungandr being one of the main bringers of the end of all things during Ragnarok, this season being centered around a sacred timeline glitch leading to the potential end of the entire multiverse is also thematically appropriate as well in a show about the Norse god Loki. But the main point here is that there is an overall Ouroboros theme in this series that appears to indicate that the character of OB is a lot more important than the series has been initially leading on, and that OB could potentially end up becoming a major force in the multiverse saga to come by the end of this Loki season. In fact, I have a feeling that OB could actually end up being revealed as the Kang variant, Mr. Griffin, who made his debut in 2015's All New, All Different Avengers #1. As a lot of you may already know, Mr. Griffin was a version of Kang that was stranded in the modern century after a glitch in the time stream split him apart into multiple different variants of himself, with Mr. Griffin being one of those new variant identities that was born. And while he was stranded in the modern time, Mr. Griffin would end up founding the company known as Kang Enterprises and purchasing Stark Tower to serve as Kang Enterprises' new base of operations, all while secretly spending every waking moment of his life trying to find a way out of the 21st century with all of his company's resources, even telling the Avengers that he was willing to not sleep for 2,000 years to make that dream a reality. But not only this, Mr. Griffin was also an extremely vindictive person, even going as far as forcing Miss Marvel to watch her mom get hit by a bus and die just because he felt like it, and because Miss Marvel messed with him in the past. But one of the most interesting things of note about Mr. Griffin is that he had a special ability to time slip other things and other people at will. Pretty much any other element outside of himself. Now, this all being said, considering that this season started with Loki time slipping all over the place, OB secretly being Mr. Griffin and using his time-shifting powers could potentially explain that strange phenomenon that happened to Loki. I could definitely see OB being the direct cause of Loki's time-slipping just so Mobius could come back down to RNA to see him again, because he knew that breaking a tempad or a computer would not be enough for Mobius to make the trip himself. He had to break Mobius's new best friend, a best friend that OB is jealous of. It seems like he just wanted them both to come down to see him so he could send them off to die as revenge. But anyways, not only do the characters of Mr. Griffin and OB both wear green ties and refuse to sleep, but also OB secretly being Mr. Griffin would also make sense considering that we saw Kang Tower appear in the void in the last season of Loki, teasing Mr. Griffin's coming influence to the MCU through his purchase of Avengers Tower in the 616 timeline branch. So it would make perfect sense for Marvel to continue that thread that they teased with that Easter egg last season through the origin of Mr. Griffin this season. But whether or not OB is actually a basement-dwelling Mr. Griffin in waiting, my main point here is that there is more to Ouroboros than meets the eye in Loki Season 2, and that his tragic TVA history could cause him to be revealed as the secret snake that he truly is. I'm watching you, OB. I'm watching you. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. You can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter if you guys want to see me tweet some weird shit. I'm also on Instagram if you guys want to see me post some really fun memes. But most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to Heavy Spoilers today, because we always got some really fun stuff for you guys on the regular. And my boy Paul has the best breakdowns in the business. Let's be real. And hey, if you got a free second, don't forget to drop a thumbs up, because that really helps out the channel. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your time and your love. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.